Rakesh, thanks for making time to speak to us. You had a meeting on the subject of evaluation today at the hotel here at the conference, reports are that it was very highly attended. Why do you think the work of evaluation is so important for the African Development Bank?
Thanks very much, Michael, and thanks for having me. I think 2 points. First, this is a premier time. It is our very first event at an annual meeting, and the objective of this event was not just to raise awareness for evaluation, but also to assess many of the challenges going forward for evaluators on the IFIs, on the multilateral development banks. The things that we talk about somehow seem esoteric in nature at times, but getting the evidence and getting to know what works and what doesn't work so that we don't repeat mistakes in the future is critical. And to put it simply, that's what we try and do on a day-to-day basis. One of the key things is to find an appropriate balance between learning and accountability. Accountability is relatively easier. It's fairly easy for us to find what is not working and then point fingers at people saying, you didn't do this and you didn't do that. But what is far more important is to help in ensuring that we do not repeat the mistakes of the past.
Could you give an example of where your work in evaluation has changed the policy of the bank or changed an approach to development that may have gone unchanged otherwise?
I could pick on 2 examples which immediately come to mind. The first one was an evaluation of fragile states. Again, it was an evaluation that was on a low budget. We typically do our evaluations on low budgets anyway. But the influence this evaluation had was phenomenal. Let's keep in mind that a large part of the fragile states around the world are on our continent. This evaluation focused the management like no other. The president got involved in a serious way. He approached President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, who agreed to chair a high-level panel. A new department for fragile states was created. The funding sources of fragile states changed, and the role that the ADF plays and the funding sources coming in from ADF in terms of the formula was also changed. So huge changes because of one evaluation. A second evaluation that comes to mind is a private sector evaluation. Again, this was a big picture evaluation trying to see what the bank should do differently to ensure increased support to private sector. And again, there were structural changes within the bank, process changes within the bank, streamlining processes, looking at headroom available for private sector, and a number of other things that the president and his senior management changed thanks to this evaluation.
Transparency is often an issue, an obstacle that is cited as towards African growth, investment in Africa. What role does the bank and private companies, private firms like banks, other banks, commercial banks, investors, what role do they have to play in improving transparency and making the work of evaluation easier?
I think transparency is linked to data. What we as evaluators do is try and find a mix of sources. So quantitative data for me is critical, but qualitative is just as important. So we try and bring in this together and put it forward as evidence. The one thing I never want to do is take forward an evaluation report which does not have appropriate evidence base, because in my view, a poor evaluation is worse than no evaluation at all, because a poor evaluation could lead policymakers in the wrong direction and therefore make wrong changes and head the wrong path down the road. In terms of the accountability side, because that's where corruption and transparency and all come in, the role that evaluation plays in ensuring public accountability of our institution is critical, because the one thing we do is bring truth to power with no fear of reprisals. And we bring in all the evidence that we can find, and once it's there, people take notice. The important thing, of course, is not to just bring the evidence to the table, but to ensure that the people who are in a position to use this information do use it.
Of course, we are back in Ivory Coast with the AfDB conference this year after a period of political unrest. How does the spread of better governance in Africa improve your ability to do your job, improve the process of evaluation?
The process of evaluation depends very heavily on what is available to us. Data quality and quantity in Africa, unfortunately, are lacking. The one thing that we constantly strive for on the evidence side is bringing in quantitative data, and we use every possible source. You're absolutely right. We are returning to our statutory headquarters after a hiatus. The one aspect that we must remember is with growth comes disparity. Our job as evaluators, again, is to find ways to ensure that this disparity is minimized while the growth is maximized. A tenuous balance, but an important balance.
Rakesh Nangia, thank you very much for your time. Thank you.